In this video, we will look at a white Kadota fig growing in Kona, Hawaii. Here is the mature plant that is espalier style. It's been pruned fairly heavily, is a few years old, and produces well. Here we see some immature fruit on the tree, and here are some mature fruit picked, ready to eat. This plant came from a division from another plant. Here it is in the ground when it first went in. A very aggressive vertical growing process makes it pretty easy to prune. Here you can see that I'm growing it very laterally to go into an espalier, which I won't cover too much in this video, but you'll see the process as you see the tree mature. You can also see that even on a very young tree, because it was a division, there's quite a bit of fruit on this plant. White Kadota is highly recommended for growth in Hawaii. It produces fruit year-round. In the winter months, the production goes down, but we still get a couple of fruits a week. During the summer, warmer, longer light days, we get fruit every day. The other benefit of it is that birds are not quite as attracted to this fruit as they are to some of the more purple, bright colored fig trees. So you get quite a bit more of it without having to compete with the animals. And at this point, we're getting more or less close to the finished shape on this tree for me. Quite nice espalier, works well. All I'm doing here is removing the branches that are growing outside of the espalier shape, and I'm going to use these to propagate, which I'll show shortly. Some growing guides recommend not to pull fig cuttings that come from below ground and have roots already because they may carry harmful nematodes. I've experimented with a handful of different ways on taking fig cuttings. This is one of many, but basically I have wet vermiculite in the pots, and those are sitting in plastic or large walled containers that hold water. They're soaked down, and I'm taking leafless cuttings of my fig cuttings that have at least 2 nodes on them and separating those out. That's what I'm doing now. And on this one, I'm just cutting the top part of the leaf off so there isn't too much leaf matter dehydrating the plant. Here I'm scraping off the bark to expose the cambium layer on the cutting, so you can see the green underneath. So I'm kind of just gently scraping. You don't have to do this, but this will increase your success rate. And then I'm dipping it in rooting hormone. Again, not necessarily. I have done this before where I've taken cuttings and put them in water and they've rooted. So this is just the method I'm using for this go around. In the background here, I have some old refrigerator trays that I kept and I use as propagation boxes. So I just put the stuff inside and then cover with a second box that just keeps the humidity levels high. I wouldn't recommend pulling these out after 2 weeks. I did it simply for the purpose of this video to show that after 2 weeks I had this kind of root growth. I recommend longer. In fact, you can wait until you actually see roots coming out of the bottom, or you can do it a little bit more gently and kind of fiddle around in the vermiculite to see if roots are growing. In the past, when I've had a high value fig cutting that I only have one of, I'll be much more careful. But in general, once they start to root like this, there is a very high success rate, and I have an almost unlimited supply. So I wasn't being ultra careful, but you can be if you need to be. So some of these were not rooted at all. This one was not rooted. There were other ones that weren't, so I put them right back in the vermiculite and stuck them back in the propagation box.
Okay, so came back, put the ones that hadn't rooted back in their pots, and pulled one out today. It's in a few weeks, and we've got pretty substantial roots going. So this is the only one. It's kind of funny because this one looks pretty healthy. It's the only one that didn't root at all. At this point, I'm still going to pot it up. And I'm going to take my chances because I don't want to put just one back in the propagation box.
So here they are a few weeks later. You could see that there is actually branch growth in the bottom right-hand plant. They're pretty healthy. Roots are starting to grow out. Occasionally some die off, like the one on the bottom left. You can just toss those out as long as you have enough of them. It's no problem. Once these start to fill out the pots with roots, they get potted into bigger pots. So here they are in 1 gallon pots. So at this point, I think it's probably best to put them in the ground. White Kadota are just such a fantastic variety. They grow really aggressively in the ground, and they fruit really rapidly. So here the plants are probably about 7 months later, laden with fruit, already been pruned back. A great plant. White Kadota. Thank you very much.